So the eastern edge of Freiburg, the probably the most dominant feature of it is the Bone Bridge, which extends from the Merchant's Quarter up into the Philosopher's Stone. Um, I think we're there on the map. Yeah, we are. Um, the Bone Bridge is far larger than any creature that Len has actually seen, and is dominated by there's like a very shitty tavern on the southern end of it. That's kind of like a Freiburg necessary experience. You're supposed to go there at least once, but it was a bit disappointing in your memory. Uh, no particularly great drinks. Everything was a little bit overpriced. Most of the people that were there were like nobles who seemed to expect to pay too much for what was there. But as you're kind of making your way, or do you stay? Which inn did you stay at? You're not at the inn. You're up with Gertrude and her
Yeah.
homes.
Yep.
So you're making your way to the north. It's a long walk back to the Draken Nest.
Yeah, it is.
When the bridge seems to move underfoot, it is an enormous, like spine and rib cage and wings, and you're standing on the spine of it. You know what I'm saying? This is a thing that has like survived intact since well, I mean, centuries before the Eisen were even here.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly the entire like upper half of it seems to turn. There's no head on it, but you can see where like the top of the spine kind of like turns, and you can see points of red glowing in the sky as like whatever this thing's face is seems to orient itself towards you.
Matrushka?
Um, and like a voice that seems like it would shake the city says, "You have been in the city. What have you seen?"
I have seen dire threats. I have seen, at least, been with those who've witnessed those touched by strange creatures in the dark woods, those who have seen horrible beasts of chaos unleashed in the wilds. I have seen the corruption of nobles, and I have seen such threats. I have seen possibly a way to save Usura, but potentially at the cost of tens of thousands of other lives.
The it's the realization that like you're in fact dreaming when like the entire kind of landscape is shifting. Like the dragon is suddenly smaller and whole and still sort of like bone at this point, but like its skull is back. And it looks a lot like this would be even smaller than like the Draken that makes the Draken Cathedral. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Bone Bridge itself would dwarf the cathedral. Um, and it seems it kind of like paces around you. There's a both like a feline energy to it, but also a masculine one. And like you have never spoken to Matushka before, but like you are fairly sure that it's not precisely Matushka that you're speaking to.
No, she would not speak to one like me. This would be one of her heralds, one of her children.
um he are you just noting that internally, or are you asking?
No, he's saying it out loud when he realizes, as soon as the dragon shrinks, he's like, well, this would not be Matrushka. You are one who speaks for her or with her voice. Yes?
He says, "I do speak with her authority. It has been granted me." And you know enough of like the mythology and the lore and stuff like that to know that there's probably only one person who would dare to claim that for themselves, and that's Koshé, who is like So Koschei is a figure in actual Russian lore, and a lot of like what he has very much correlates. Does that make sense? He's a
Yep.
mass murderer, a crazy person, and immortal. He's like the dude who's showing up is almost always a bad sign, but he's also like known to be representing Matushka's interests. Does
Hmm.
that make sense?
Yeah,
It's
he
just
is.
he's usually showing up when Matushka has bad news for everybody involved.
Yeah, yeah, and Len is unsurprised, honestly, with everything that they've been uncovering since he arrived in this city and picked up that freaking coat. Or not picked up the coat. Found the dead dude with all the pistols. And hung up, connected with Gav. Nothing has gone good. So he's like, oh, yes, Gaucher. I should
um,
have suspected.
uh, yeah, and the dragon kind of like twists again, and like the man that walks towards you is like um I don't know like a cleaner way to say it, but like, do you know the difference between like strong bisexual energy and just strong omnivorous energy?
Mm-hmm.
Like I would anything.
Yeah.
Right, he's extremely handsome, he and very like impossible to detect any kind of like age. Does that make sense? He could be 30, he could be youthful, he could be, I mean, you know, by reputation he's centuries old. um he's also probably one of the few people in all of Usura who would terrify the Gaius.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and
um
Len is obviously he's doing what an animal would do in the face of a bigger predator, even like a your standard predator. He's a little puffed up, but not enough to give offense. Pretty much that whole I know you would kill me, but I would try to take your eyes out before you got me.
it says, you mentioned the dark woods.
Mm,
You mean the Black Forest to the south?
yes,
It says,
yes.
and a creature stirring within it.
The creature has stirred. One of my compatriots, the fellow warrior, well, one of my fellow warriors, mentioned. Wait, call on. Hans did mention kind of what happened to get the Panzer hand to them, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mentioned his encounter and now carries a strange uh, living weapon. Drinks blood was kind of creepy. And another newer compatriot was effectively saved by this being, though I'm not sure what her connection is to it besides she has a doll of it that and it killed a lot of people to save her.
um Koshe looks thoughtful. He's kind of, you know, he's sort of stroking his goatee as he considers. And then the you'd mentioned people, you know, being awful.
Yep. And the
What
Inquisition.
was the Inquisition,
Yeah,
and what was
you
the other thing that you'd specifically mentioned there?
let's see the oh yeah, the creatures of chaos, the horrible serpents being birthed by a rune mage.
What?
And to just kind of detail, one of my other compatriots used her magic to Farsi and saw a mage or rune something. I don't remember what they're called. Um, I'm just playing it off. You don't have to tell me.
No, no, no.
But who was in the wilds and appeared to be pregnant and then birthed giant poisonous white serpents before throwing her into a wall with his power from a distance, which was also very disturbing. There's a lot
this
of weird things going on.
this companion is a sorceress.
Yes, she uses runes in her skin.
A Scourgeon.
Yes.
They are not the only ones capable of sight, but theirs is quite reliable. And you say that there was, you said a ruin mage.
Um, I think that is what she said about the rune that popped up in her skin when this happened. I don't think she meant for it to be there, but it is there now.
Oh, he just kind of, he seems to like steeple his fingers together and turn and kind of like look at river that runs underneath the bone bridge. You see that like in the dream, the bridge is still gone, but like now you're kind of like standing at like the underneath of it, and you can see people sort of just tumbling out of the tavern as they walk out, and the bridge isn't there. You're not
Serves it
sure.
right.
I mean, it seems like it should be a dream, but like they're giving some pretty like realistic death screams.
Eh, if they do not look where they're walking, is not my problem.
Um,
However, one other thing important that I must tell you, because I believe it will be important to the mother. The emperor's daughter is with child, and that child is likely the child of the man who now carves his way to the heart of our country, and he does not know. If you were speaking for anybody but my goddess, you would not know this, but this is a thing that must be said.
he says, so he says, it is possible this news would make Montague turn aside.
It is, but in so doing, he would carve his way back out, ravage our countryside, likely ravage the countrysides of several other countries who may turn desperate and turn on us, um, ravage this city, and then go to war with the emperor himself.
They would not need to carve their way out of Usura.
This is true.
If they
They
were to
made
peacefully retreat and Matushka was certain that was their intent, she would allow them to go without harm. She would melt the snows from the roads.
we would.
She would make sure that game found its way in front of their guns. Particularly if he was going to turn his blades upon the Emperor.
Yes. But I think possibly this she will not necessarily want to do, because unless I am remembering incorrectly, she does not favor the current ruler of our country.
No.
And for as much as I must hate him as an invader, I must respect our enemy for what he has accomplished against everything we could throw against him.
Oh, his tenacity is to be lauded. Um, he seems to have like taken all this like very thoughtfully. There, you can tell that like there are wheels turning.
And one further thing to throw into the mix, because I feel it is important. The Inquisition is attempting to secure the position of Hierophant, and has already tried to murder the only cardinal who might stand up to them.
Do you know why Matushka tolerates the Orthodox Lutheran Church within its borders, but no others?
Because of shit like this?
It says the first prophet, before he went to speak to the Senate, spoke to Matushka.
We showed respect.
He asked her for wisdom, and she granted it to him. Says the second and third prophet did not.
That does explain things.
However, the second prophet did come in peace. The third, and like you're suddenly sort of like back inside of that room where like Honorine had been taken and the book was held, and like there was the picture of like the third prophet with the sword of fire. He says the third prophet, he says, is something of a mystery in and of himself. He says the first and second, they were born of common stock. He says they were peasants, the lowest of the low. He says the third was born of noble blood.
Yes, and that immediately casts suspicion upon it.
And he was the first to speak for war.
What a surprise. I should have peed on that painting too while I was there. But we were short on time.
He smiles in amusement at that, and he kind of like looks out the window, and you see he's like looking in the direction of the actual Wachtturm itself. It says, "How did you come by this news of the Empress's, the princess, I suppose, her pregnancy?"
Uh, that involves me actually when I first arrived in the. Hold on. It's like, all right, I'm gonna drop the accent.
Sure,
We
sure.
both know I don't need it. I do it for effect around other people, because I'm not ashamed of where I came from, and it's good cover. So when I first arrived, at, yes, I kind of cribbed this from Rosa, but it was also in the back of my head the entire time. When I first arrived, I happened on the scene of a pretty impressive battle. One gentleman, one of the ones with the blood magic, I can never remember what it's called, um, had been ambushed in the city by mask-wearing zealots and killed a great number of them before he fell. And while inspecting the body, because I was pretty interested in what was going on, and it didn't seem like a thing you normally see in the city, I found a letter and I found a Gav. And then Gav and I found a Hans who had the gentleman's jacket, and a
these
Runa
are
and a
these
Rosa.
are people.
These are people, yeah. And he'll, if he has any influence of the dream, he'll just pick like do a and a Rosa and a Hans and a Runa and
Yeah, you can have like kind of like phantom images like
yep,
appearing
phantom
all throughout
images.
the
There
little
you go.
Inquisition room that you're in.
Yep. And they were already working for the current I don't know if powers in the city, but the current person who gets things done in the city. Uh, we followed some instructions, delivered a coded message. It was decoded, and the message itself was that she was with child, the at the time the only real heir, and that child was the general's. Um, and that kind of led into finding out all these other things because this group is a magnet for trouble, or a magnet
Says
at least for pivotal events.
this group is very useful. And Koche says it with like a delighted kind of approval that's still a little unnerving.
Yeah, yeah. Gav's like, I'm glad you're happy about that. Wet drop. And so there we are. The I think a different message is already being crafted from the original message. I'm not sure what the next play is going to be with that, because the people who know are not ones who would be in favor of that army turning up at the doorstep of this city, hungry and looking to resupply before continuing with the campaign.
Do you know any more of these people who wish to intercept this message?
Um, they all wore masks. They were called I don't remember out of
Oath makers, if
the
you're
oath makers. I don't know much more about them. They attacked us early on, and we beat the crap out of them, and we haven't really seen them since.
so. This is a quick digression, but so I have super pale eyebrows, so you can't really tell like when my eyebrow goes up really high. But Koche's arches, like when the word Oathmaker is mentioned, that seems to particularly catch his interest.
I see you know who they are.
No, but the choice of name is curious.
And so that's everything I have uncovered since arriving in the city. Hopefully Matrushka is pleased with this wealth of knowledge, even if I don't know what to do with most of it.
There comes a point, he says, where ignorance prevents us from taking an appropriate course. He kind of, his brow furrows for a moment. This is Pyrrhium is the oldest sorcery in the world, made possible by the very blood of Matushka soaking the soil of the nation where she resides. It says, because you are born of that blood, because you are a Surin, it can be granted to you. It can be granted to another with her focus and her choice to do so, but she's never given that gift to anyone who is not born of her lands. It is the oldest sorcery, but it is not the only one. And the other sorceries that live in this world were stolen.
Stolen. Who could steal from a god?
Says, you know the stories that the people of the world were made by Machushka herself.
Mm-hmm.
Says, there are stories that we were not her first creation. And you have seen evidence that there are many other creatures that have been here before humanity.
Yes.
Let us say that some of them were treacherous.
And in the end, they no longer exist. For the most part.
Who says sometimes things are more complicated than that. He says, but let us say that one such group of treacherous thieves stole something from Matushka, and when they were punished for that crime, they chose to give it to another, the race which followed. It says Porte and Sorte and every other form of magic that has been gifted unto humanity, with the possible exception of glamour, although that is its own story, was stolen. It says either as part of a bargain or taken by force in the case of the Scaregin. It says, so when you say that they have named themselves Oathmakers, I find that an unusual choice, because the theft in both cases was accomplished by an oath, a promise.
Yes, that does beg the question, who did they make? I keep slipping into it.
That's fine.
Who did they make that oath to?
They are known in many lexicons now as the Bargainers. I could give you their real name, but it would be meaningless.
The Bargainers. Well, originally I thought they were just servants of the Emperor working to suppress knowledge that he didn't want to get out. Like, it would not be in his best interest for the general he sent off to die, to turn around and come to rescue his love and child. But you are suggesting or outright stating that it's far deeper and more mystical than that?
The particular choice of words says the fact that they seem to have organized themselves. You described masks, robes.
Yes.
That seems to be a bit more of a mystical bent to me.
It does. It does.
Albeit the props of children and fools who don't understand the forces that they're playing with. But they must have access to knowledge, which has at least given them the kernel of this idea.
Yes. If I'm remembering more about Porte now, for example, and if the gentleman they ambushed had Porte, how did they know where he was going to be when they attacked him?
There are magics like that of the Scaregin to see into the distance. There are also magics that allow people to see into the future.
Threads of fate?
Not precisely. Something different. Something still hidden from out of the world.
Well, I hate that. Good to know it exists, but
Koshe kind of like puts a hand on Len's shoulder, kind of, like rubs his collarbone a little bit with his thumb as he does it. And he says, you and me both. You and me both.
So I suppose the two big questions now are, what do you and Matrushka want me to do, if anything, or should I just keep stumbling into strange and disturbing information? And then how much of this should I keep from my compatriots?
I think the information about the bargainers might be of use to them.
That I will definitely share.
I am curious for more information about this ruin mage as well.
Yes, I think it's not the first time he's done this, but I'll have to look into it. I think Runa has at least some more information on him that we haven't discussed yet. So, is there any direction, or just keep going and doing what I'm doing? Because
The direction that you have been traveling in has been very useful. I hope to take some of the scales off your eyes.
scales off my eyes. It's kind of like pig-headed. Did I get a lizard form?
He kind of laughs, and like you see like the draconic features start to like reappear around him. He starts to like grow and swell. And like his wings begin to beat, and he says, "Not yet." He says, "But if you're a loyal servant, that might be arranged." And the dragon form begins to fly off, and then you wake, in your own bed or another's bed if that's where you fell asleep.
I don't know, Rosa? No, just kidding. They were drinking and flirting, it felt like, but yeah, no, it'll probably be his bed. And alone.
Not yet.
Not yet. All right. Well, we'll see where that goes. If nothing else, it would get Gertrude off his back. But that aside, then he's gonna wake up and prepare for the day, and gonna try and gather everybody because we have things to talk about.
You're a little bit surprised to find, so like most of the animals which are like bear your spirit form, you know what I'm saying, reside within Usura. Does that make sense? Like,
yep.
It's kind of your personal theory is that the animals that kind of like are part of the Purium Pact, they serve Matushka directly, but they frequently like being brought in to fight against the Montane soldiers or act as spies or stuff like that, right? So it's a surprise that like when you wake up, like your give no shits prince cat is like sitting in your room, just kind of licking a paw.
Well, looks like I have a roommate. I'd better get back into it. So it looks like I have a roommate. I will get you something. Are you assigned to keep watch now?
No, there's been a complication. And he kind of like meows from like, and you see like another cat kind of enters the room, like a little like tabby gray. And she is very clearly a pregnant cat.
Well,
he says, "I'm not going to stay."
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's make this comfortable for her. And Len's gonna set up a little kitty box with, a towel and food and water, just get the whole thing. And then he's gonna go find the group about the whole, world shaking.
She definitely, you think like both your cat and this cat, who is not Purium bound, you know what I'm saying, is just a normal cat, but apparently, cute by cat girl standards. They've walked from Usura to here, so she's definitely could use some food.
Yeah. He's gonna make sure she's fed and well cared for and comfortable. And
do you letting Gertrude know about her before you?
Of course.
Okay. And Gertrude's just delighted, like, "Oh, look, this beauty."
Yep, and I'll make sure, she'll be the first one, if possible, to see the kittens when they're born and the whole thing. So
yeah.
All right. And then Cappuccino, and then the group.
Okay, so we're gonna drop curtain there, and then I'm gonna do the intro real quick. And Gav is trying to kill us all in the chat. I'm not gonna read what he said.
Sorry, not sorry.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the Shadow of the Wachtturm, a 7th First Edition Let's Play set in the great lawless city of Freeburg. Our art is courtesy of Hero Forge, First Edition 7th, and Be Funky. Our producer is one of the moderators of Dirty 20 Gaming, the delightful and compassionate Gloriosa, and our lore master for the series is the beautiful and benevolent Syndra. Before we get started, I want to give a content warning. While the spirit of 7th is swashbuckling adventure and shadowy intrigue, the story will deal with mature themes, including death, loss, suicide, and grief. Eisen, our setting, is recovering from a 30-year civil war over religious differences. It may get dark sometimes, and there's no shame in bowing out if it's just not a place your head can go at the moment. So without further ado, I'm going to have our savvy swashbucklers introduce themselves, starting with Len.
Hi, folks. It's me, your relatively friendly neighborhood bad Kyle. You can find me here on Sundays playing Len Dance Machine Costin, even though he hasn't actually been able to dance yet. We'll get to that. Everybody's favorite shapeshifter, pseudo mercenary, failed spy, and dangerously beautiful but doesn't date anybody. You can find me then on Mondays playing Badges Newth, the saltiest druid and most reluctant
Thursdays.
hero. Thursdays.
Badges is Thursdays.
Yeah, Mondays was the Buffy game.
Yeah.
Thursdays in the King's Pyrite campaign run by our wonderful Sands, who puts up with a lot more of my crap than probably she should have to deal with. Then otherwise you can find me on the Discord server with a bunch of wonderful people, mostly posting unhinged food memes and being a general menace. And speaking of Sands, over to Sands.
Hey, uh, I go by Sans or Sarah. You can find me over on the Discord. I lurk a lot. I'm also here on the Carnage Heights games on Tuesday as our resident corpo. She's counting her days magic. And as said before, I am the DM for the Fool's Gold campaign, King's Pyrite on Thursdays. And I'm here tonight as our Strega. Wait, someone might be interested in me? Rosa Nix, even though she is dangerously pretty. Other than that, I'm working with the Scarred Adventure over on Tangle Productions on stuff and things that will come out eventually. Creative takes forever. Going to bounce over to Gav, who has broken everybody.
I am not going to apologize, nor am I going to let you guys find out what I said. I am Bison_Stonefist. Tonight I am proud to give you guys Gav the Grin, the party's lovable dumbass. And on Tuesdays I am responsible for bringing everybody the absolute train wreck that is Carnage Heights. I'm kidding, I love it. And on Thursdays, I play the big damn hero, Encino, no last name. He is our Dragonborn Paladin Ranger on King's Pyrite. Other than that, I am a regular poster inside the Discord. And if you want to hear me ramble for 2 hours, ask me something about Warhammer. On to Ruth.
I actually plan to take you up on that offer because there's so much I want to know.
We just watched the secret level episode about 40K recently. It was really good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and there's more that I need to know. Anyway, we won't open that can of worms on stream because that'll be the whole stream, I feel. Hi, I'm Ruth. I am here on Tuesdays as Exit. I almost said Runa, just because I usually say the day that I'm on first. Again, still need to write it down. Still haven't. Oops. As our resident fixer. Thursdays as Desrai, who is always looking for a fight because that's literally what I built her for. Oops. Shouldn't have done that. And Sundays today as Runa, our Bruna. Not again. On to
We found you.
Hans.
Woohoo. Ah, hello everybody. My name is Rory. I'm playing our lovely and maybe slightly possessed soldier boy Hans.
You.
A little bit possessed maybe. Likely cool things to come with that. I am a little bit sick, so pardon if I'm slightly spacey today. And pardon if I accidentally clear my throat while I'm unmuted. I hope I don't make it too disgusting of noises of like middle-aged dad noises today.
They've been all day.
Aside from what I do as our fun dude here, I make music. I'll put my SoundCloud link. I know the SoundCloud link may be overdone and slightly goofy, but that's where I'm like at least starting to upload stuff again soon. Streaming is gonna be a thing. I've done one and I've just been busy and now sick. I'm hopefully finally gonna get around to the debut of my radio DJ talk show, slightly satirical thing, The Basement, on either Tuesday or Wednesday before I gotta go back to work. And I'm gonna be hopefully streaming a bit of learning Bitwig and relearning some music stuff other days. But yeah, I think that's about it for me. So let's give this back to Sios and crack on with the story for today.
Absolutely. In the ancient days of Numa, the great storyteller and philosopher, Sarah the Wiser, once noted that adventure can begin in only one of three ways: by death, by slur, or by letter. To begin without one of these incitements is folly, a tobacco best described as an indiscretion, a dalliance, an escapade. But fear not, we begin tonight properly girded with a death, the most inescapable of the three, and thus the most powerful. Or rather, what we begin with is several deaths that have been investigated by Gav and Len, for which a young Felix was nearly killed over. We're now kind of backing out, giving everybody a little bit of time. Many people have things on their plate that they are looking into. And so I've kind of set aside this session as like letting people kind of do their own investigations and getting prepared. We're not going to have anything that leads directly into a conflict unless somebody just really decides to jump in feast first, in which case that's probably what we're going to do. But I might just put it off and be like, hey, you got to give me time to stat folks out. So we'll come back to that.
If they don't have stats, we ought to win. So this is the time to strike, y'all. Let's.
That is not quite how it works, I'm afraid. I'm very good at statting things on the fly, but
Pulling a King's Pyrite would be trying to start a fight and then everyone else going, but
No.
And then by the end of the episode, everybody's like, you know what? Yeah, let's start a fight.
Or my favorite,
Real.
it's everyone starts a fight when none of the tanks are there.
Yeah, you guys should stop doing that.
Never my fault.
Stop vanishing.
All right, so
Don't tell me what to do.
word has been spread by the kitty delivery system. You know, the messengers that kind of spread stuff throughout to everybody. I assume Gav's kind of staying at the playhouse until he gets his own place figured out.
Yeah, more or less. He's not unused to sleeping rough. So if, it's too busy or, whatever, he doesn't have a problem sleeping in the alley outside.
Yeah, the alley outside is a good way to like lose everything that you own in the riverfront. Or at least that is on you.
Yeah.
And
stupid enough to mug Gav.
And when they're sleeping, the kids will do it.
Oh, that's true.
They gotta eat too, and they know we won't hurt them. So, we're gonna actually cut over to Hans. So this is in part to do sort of like an out of character thing, because the last game I fed the wrong names to the players as far as who was responsible for some murders. So outside of a lovely little bakery, There is, which is run by Kara and another Hans, Franken. You are picking up breakfast for everybody. There's going to be the meeting and stuff like that. Hans frequently gets the sort of, he's both social and not intimidating like Gav is. Speaks the language well, so and it's not just for him, like it's for the Playhouse as well. They have a show tonight. They usually kind of try to make sure the food's available. The bakery is it's been recommended a few times. It's been doing brisk business ever since the Dragon Nest, since the cathedral started doing the Sunday feedings, since
the big feasts.
So, well, because they're one of the chief contributors to it. Does that make sense? Okay. The cardinal has leaned on them heavily, and they don't do like all the soups and meats and stuff like that, but almost all of the rolls and breads and everything that is kind of a major staple for when you're trying to ward off starvation. The bakery is responsible for. Okay. So the reason I picked it specifically is because that way I can introduce the Frankens, who are just like a very sweet middle-aged couple with no children, who they are like constantly up to their elbows in dough and kind of like taking orders of, what do you want? Okay, it's like do you know like when like Starbucks like first open an area and they're just like slammed? Like that's how the bakery is right now. And they're, despite that being incredibly like sweet and friendly and welcoming to everybody who comes in, they seem to know everybody who's been a repeat customer, and everybody who's new, when they recognize Hans is new, they're like, oh, welcome, and trying to get his name. Like when he puts in a large order, it's sort of like oh, all of this is for you.
Oh yeah, go back and forth, grabbing breakfast for a big group of friends and whatnot.
Oh, okay. Well, you're very lean for all of this to have been just for you.
Yes, it would be far too much for me to eat on my own. I work with the Playhouse in what district is the Playhouse in? God damn it.
It's the riverfront. Playhouse
is
in the
yes.
Riverfront. And this place is actually in the riverfront, and it also seems to be one of the sort of like it doesn't seem like a place that's like ripped off a lot. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And that's probably because the prices are super reasonable. Oh. And like if you force a place that has reasonable prices that most people can afford out of business through theft, you will be
just a target of a lot of rage. Yeah, exactly. You'll have a pretty big target on your back.
Yeah. So the reason I want to bring them, because this was the name that I accidentally gave to the players, is the serial killer types, and that is not the case. They were actually given a different name, and I was gonna go with it and kind of like play like, no, you got the wrong name. They were just feeding the wrong name to the guards, until I realized that like Mondavi had like been like, oh yeah, that's the people, and he would actually know, and he would have been like, nope, that's the wrong name. What you're looking for.
That's the wrong guys. You're looking for these people, actually.
So the actual names that you have been given are Carmela and Friedrich Krauss, and so how I'm kind of retconning everything, the guard did feed you the wrong names. He did say these people, the Frankens. Ettore Mondavi said, no, that's not them, but based on the description, I know these people are the ones that you're looking for. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So you've kind of come here as double duty. One, to like make sure that these don't seem like serial killer murderers. And honestly, like you can't see it. They're like busy giving away food.
Yeah.
And there is quite a bit of like in the, like a couple like hungry kids that'll like come up to the back and kind of poke their noses over, and like the Kara will kind of like go and be like, you can't be here, you can't be. And meanwhile, she's like stuffing a bag with some rolls and just, like in such a way that like she thinks her husband doesn't see. He absolutely sees, but just pretends to not. And they leave with like a handful of food, enough to get them through the day, that kind of thing, but all while pretending that they aren't doing it. So they leave you with a bag that is like takes 2 hands to carry. To take back to the Playhouse.
Plenty of stuff. Wonderful.
And the place absolutely smelled delicious. Like most of the rolls that they have are like the kind of pretzel bread. Nice. So And they're like literally like
Good
fresh
stuff.
out of the oven in your bag. So
Hell yeah. Yeah, head over to the Playhouse, bring the food. See who else, I guess. Who else has made it there at that point? I assume we're all kind of gathering, like morning meeting over breakfast.
yeah. I suspect you guys have not heard from Gerard in some time. Nobody quite knows like what's up with him. The if people have been checking on Arthur Wolf, he seems to be in a process where he's sort of adjusting to going through weekly fights at a place that he's staying. And sometimes the people pack a little bit more punch than he expected, and he's been sleeping in with some ice on his face, something cold in his face.
Yeah.
And Honorine has been house hunting.
Fair. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
So
I'll go say good morning to Gav in the meantime. Wait for everyone
Glad to
else to
be
show
there.
up.
And
Oh, okay.
On her way, Runa is going to make a point to go past Joran's house and just like at a glance see the entrances and exits, and at a different time we'll probably enlist some help from the others to check guard rotations. But that not right now.
yeah, so he definitely has every entrance guarded. If there was like his place is large enough that if there was like a guard room inside, you could expect between 10 and 20 trained guards protecting the place. Which it sounds like a lot, but it's not for an affluent person in the merchant quarter. His place is actually dwarfed by another manor that's in this area. It's the Stroud Manor, which is I haven't really described it as one of the larger attractions in the city, but it's like the kind that has like big green hedge mazes around it and stuff like that. And compared to how tightly packed everything else is, the Stroud Manor is like this huge eccentric edifice in the merchant's quarter that regularly charges admission. She sees people like going in and leaving on tours and stuff like that. It's actually very near to that. Joran's place is, and small by comparison, but still large man's. The merchant's quarter is where you go if you want to have a big kicking house.
And yeah, she's gonna head to the Playhouse.
All right. Rosa, I think, is the closest to the river house, and then Len is probably actually arriving last of everybody.
You said the River House.
Or sorry, the Playhouse. The Playhouse.
We know what you meant. I just wanted you to know
the
what you said.
Bear house, and now since they've adopted the whole like bear motif on the outside.
Yep. Well, whenever Len shows up, Len shows up.
Yeah. Yeah, by the time you arrive, you know, there's food there. Most of the cast have already like helped themselves to something while they're running through one more rehearsal. They're debuting a new show tonight, so
I'll have to avoid that one spot.
Debuting a new show, and also the damage from the bear falling through has been repaired. So
Good. Let's go.
Reinforced?
with hopefully slightly better acoustics, although they're being put to the test tonight.
Shall see. No, I was gonna wait till Rory gets back before we share important informations.
Sure. Yeah, they're kind of like running through. There's like I think everybody who's kind of gotten used to using the Playhouse as a base is probably now used to semi-regular nudity from the performers, because when they do full dress rehearsal, it's also a full undressed rehearsal. So, so there's quite a bit of that. Like Alejandro, you see, is like usually in the front row in like the kind of orchestra pit, like, you know, helping do the direction of the songs and pointing to people when their solo starts or whatnot. And Veronica is up on stage, trying to steal it as always when she's on. as Len arrives. And
He waves to everyone, and it makes his way up to the office area.
Bruna grabs herself, like, make sure that everyone's gotten at least one, and then she grabs a second one.
Runa is still trying to get back up to fighting weight.
She's bulking.
Yeah, bulking. And then we'll of course grab a snack and then sit down and be like, "Well, my friends, things have become more complicated.
I'd agree.
I do not know how familiar you are with Usuran myth and legend, but Cache visited me in my dreams last night. And I mean not that I had a dream about Cache, but the immortal sorcerer and voice of Matrushka herself. And I had a discussion. He said, especially that the masked group that we battled is interesting because, how to put this? Much of the magic of the world, besides the intrinsic magic of Usura, he informed me was stolen. Stolen by races that are not necessarily around anymore and gifted to humanity. They did so through oaths and deals made. So the name Oathbreakers was of fairly heavy interest to him. He also said they went by another name, and I've already forgotten that name.
So the group that was the cult was named the Oathmakers. You said breakers, which is why I'm
Or
just
Oathmakers,
saying
sorry.
it's a
Oathmakers.
relatively important distinction for
Yeah.
intent. And then the other one that I believe he mentioned was bargainers.
The bargainers.
Is that what the word you're looking for?
Yeah, that was what I was looking for. For some reason, it became deal makers in my head. I haven't even had an edible today. It's just one of those days. There's like there another similar group, might be an offshoot, might be the same group under a slightly different name, but they were known as the bargainers. He was also very interested in the ruin wielding Skerjan.
The snake mother.
Yes, that, as well as the being from the Black Forest. He mentioned some important things also about the church. That the first prophet was born of common blood and sought her out for wisdom before speaking to the Senate and giving his messages. The second prophet was also a man of common blood, and while he did not ask Matrushka for wisdom, he did come and speak to her and treat with her. The third prophet was born of nobility, did not speak to Matrushka, and was the first one to advocate for war.
Is he legitimate?
That is kind of my question as well, and he did not answer that one. But and honestly, anything springing from the nobility is of suspect value to me at this point. It would be well within their benefits and interest to instill their own prophet, one who could be wielded directly against their interests, or against those who stand against their interests. So, yes. So not even necessarily the goddess of an entire country knows everything, but these things we keep stumbling into, or each of us has experienced, are of great interest to powers far greater than us.
We are in deep. We are certainly in deep now.
Yes. Even more strangely, I was given no direction in what to do.
Hmm.
If need be, I can look further into the Scourgeon that I've been looking into.
It may come to that, but I worry
Are-
for your safety after the last time you looked. I think
We
you
can
will
be better
See.
prepared.
But did he not hurt you from far away?
Yes.
Uh, we can be prepared to at least keep you from bouncing off walls again, but I do not know that that is the extent of his abilities.
I will bring cushions this time.
Cushions, nothing. I will be holding her, or you will be holding. Somebody will be holding her, so she does not flail or bounce off anything. Plus cushions.
For you, in case he is strong enough to affect you as well.
Ugh.
We do not know if it is through touch. See?
Well, that is a thing that we will find out then. We are short of tying
What I
her
know
up
of
and
his
wrapping her
magic,
in.
it is well, the rune, it's a lot of chaos.
Hmm.
Comes with. But that's if we need.
If we need. I would like to avoid that if possible.
See, I agree.
I would also like to avoid it.
In non deity
All right, so
It
it looks
was
like we're back in the stream. So,
Heyo. In
hello
case you
everybody.
missed it, in
Welcome
case you
back to
missed it.
episode 11.5, Lawless. Where we just cut off on the cliffhanger of Len, Len discussing his non-deity related news,
Yes.
and then struck low by the technical gods. So we have sacrificed many ducks to appease the internet gremlins.
To appease OBS.
Yeah.
The machine spirits
So,
were not happy.
And we hope they are now having a spirited duck race, and we cut back to Len.
So in non-deity related news, all glory to the techno gods. Rosa and I, while we were out, found out that there may be other nobles who are luring people from the Foulberg, the poor and desperate, out to the forest with promise of work and hunting them like animals for
See,
sport.
So there's more than one.
Yes.
I will need the more buckets.
We could not get a specific name. This is more of a rumor, but given what we have already come to understand, it seems likely that this is also true. I just
and
do
I
not know
would
how.
not be surprised.
Yes.
Be the worst thing they have done. I mean, this could be a new low, but I've heard tell of at least cruelties to the poor, the unfortunate souls on the outside of the city.
Yes. So, my thought would be to maybe speak to Cardinal Ciosa and see if his order, his priests and friars and such and monks can surreptitiously, it's a good word, I like that word, speak to the people they minister to and see if anything comes up in that, because I have no contacts with anyone in the Foulberg, and I would stand out quite vividly where I go there and start asking questions.
I do have someone I could ask,
Good.
inquire about this as well. But I mean, he may not know a lot, but it is worth a try.
If nothing else, is something for us to keep an ear out for.
Indeed, at least be Be vigilant for any new rumors.
Yes.
There is also the house with the bodies. I would like to find out more about that, see if they are connected.
Yes.
Because if there are murderers in city and murderers in countryside, they may be linked. And if they are, I will have words.
It is quite possible there is some sort of sadistic ring, sadistic kind of underground gathering nobles.
My fear or worry is that especially the house in the city might be related to these bargainers, these oath makers. They seem particularly quasi mystical in nature, pseudo
You said they were a
occultism.
cult. Oh yes, a cult.
So
Were they-
if they
Was
were
that
willing,
the group of masked people that we encountered?
yes, those are the
Ah.
oathbreakers, also either known as or related to the bargainers, which,
Indeed.
as stated,
Okay.
I'm saying makers. It's just probably
Oh.
not sounding like it
Ah,
because
with the
because
The
of my
accent.
accent. The accent.
terrible attempt at an accent that I just refuse to stop doing. Once, so the worst would be if they did actually make a deal with something that is requiring these sacrifices.
I mean, we now know there are darker things out there.
We knew that for quite some time.
Yeah.
Even he points to the glove. He would indicate Honorine if she was around, but she's house hunting.
Just
I
an
love you too,
honorine
sweetie.
shaped outline next to everybody else.
And you know, the ruin mage and just lots of terrible things.
On the note of cruelty and terrible things, the man who betrayed my family lives in the city. I plan to kill him,
Oh,
but I may
good.
need your guys' help.
Indeed.
Yes, of course. We can
course.
go now. Where is he?
He
His
was
house is heavily guarded.
he was engaged with the slave, or was he not?
Yes.
Huh.
He put on the guise as one of us. I didn't know this until Hans, Honorine, and I went to that bar. I found a Vestin dwarf, and he told me. I have no memory of what had happened. But his house is heavily guarded.
Oh, that's fine. They do not look out for owls. So I know what I will be doing tonight.
Thank you.
I will try to poop on one of them as I fly in your honor.
So there's going to be some time. So let's, I want to go to everybody and give them time to do the investigations they want to do. But I would like to start with everybody who's like pairing up for something. So go ahead and volunteer yourself if you know you're pairing up to do an investigation. Rosa?
Whoever needs Rosa, just
It's
tell her where to go.
Normally Gav would be Gav, Jesus. Normally Len would be happy to pair up with somebody, but nobody else can turn into an owl, and nobody else I think is actually super sneaky.
Yeah.
Oh, Rosa. Well then, yeah, he
Rosa's
might.
actually super sneaky.
Then Len and Rosa
He
will
has a
team
spider.
up. She does have
That's
a
true.
spider, so in fact, he can give the spider a ride.
If you guys are going to scope out the house, Runa would like to join.
Okay.
I can.
Oh, sorry. Who? What?
So are we having the three of them go to scope out Jor's house and Gav and Hans, are you guys investigating the house where the murders happened?
Yeah,
Is
we
that
can
what-
Yeah.
we can check out the murder house.
Yep.
Hans has a couple threads he wants to follow up on his own as well.
Yep.
I want to go talk to Henry out in the Despair, see if he's heard anything about these like rumors of the nobles like taking people out for hunting.
Runa also eventually wants to talk to Kavi and see if he knows anything of the man that she saw in her vision and the man that gave her the stinky rune.
Okay. So let's do so let's assume that the skullduggery is happening at night and anybody wants to go see and talk to somebody and have an interaction. That way it's happening during the day. Because that just makes more sense to me. So I completely drew a blank as to like Henry that Hans mentioned.
Oh yes, the man. I think his name is Henry. The man taking care of.
The man taking care of Otto.
Of Otto, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was. I don't think I wrote down his name, but I think
I don't remember. I think we kind of just pulled Henry out of the air one time because we'd both forgotten a name, and he was like,
Yeah.
"Here's a name for him."
and with that, it is getting written down. Okay, so you are heading out to Despair to Vers Weiflung. Who else is just kind of conversationally like going to look to talk to somebody? Runa's going to Kavi.
Other than going to the murder house, Gav would be doing some kind of recon around the area that like where most of the attacks have been happening, so that he can he knows which guards to bribe, you know, a good spot to set up his ambush. He's approaching this like a hunter.
Okay. All right. Rosa and Nana, is there anybody there? I called you Nana because your thing doesn't say Latin.
Oh, gosh darn it. I forgot to reset that. Hold on.
It's fine.
A lot of
I
people
have
call
to.
me Nana, though, so.
We're
Nana
having
will make
a
cookies.
tiny interjection real quick because. Okay, so this was a gift from Bat Kyle and Glory, and we decided that the only appropriate name for it was no, not Kyle.
I love it. I love it.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
Oh, and my wife will routinely just walk up to me and so, you've done that. I just needed to share that with everybody.
That's awesome.
That's so fun. Not Kyle.
Okay. So I'm sorry, Len is going to talk to who again?
Len's not talking to anybody. Len's waiting for the evening. Like if Runa or Rosa or someone needs him to go somewhere with them to loom
Sure.
attractively, then he can do that. But
Runa
otherwise,
doesn't mind him tagging along.
Okay,
Okay.
then Len will go along.
He knows a bit of Vestin.
Rosa
Yeah.
will
Okay.
follow as well. Like, what else am I gonna do?
We're moving as a pod. That's just
Okay. So you were actually you're headed to Kavi's like forge, which is so he is not in the merchant quarter. He's not anywhere near the Vendel. He's not in the riverfront either. He actually has a forge that is basically like a backyard forge in Finehearth, which is the most fire danger district of like all of the districts, and is like one of the poorest forges that you've ever seen. Does that make sense? Like as you are kind of getting to the building, you have to like go around to the back. It is literally in the backyard. Parts of it are just earth dug out so that you can maintain temperature. Other places would have, like you've worked for some time on Max Forge, and Max Forge is like stone flooring, stone walls, like even like stone tile for parts of the ceiling so that there's no risk of it catching fire. He's got bellows, he's got all kinds of like methods to like keep the temperature controlled. This is like the kind of forge that you would like dig out on an island if you needed to forge just enough metal to get to a ship to get off of it. Does that make sense? And there's a lot of it that is, but it also looks like it's been here for the better part of a year. And he just hasn't like really made enough to improve it in any significant way. Does that make sense? But the like tools and stuff that he has around it are incredibly weathered. Does that make sense? And it looks like most of the things that are on display are tools as opposed to weapons. It doesn't have any weapons visibly on display. And I will let you guys, if you want to, just those who are there, you can make wits rolls to kind of like appraise his skill level based on what you're seeing.
Could I roll with advantage? Because Runa,
You actually have the craft skill, so you're going to have both a lower target number and you can add your craft skill.
oh, sick. Okay.
16.
So it would be keep wits.
Keep wits. If you have keen senses, you also actually no. It's not so much about keen senses; it's just an awareness of.
Plus, I
technique.
know that he made my mom's sword.
Yes, but there's a lot telling about like somebody working in ideal conditions with like a masterful forge. You know what I'm saying? And somebody working with next to nothing.
So it'd be 3, keep 2.
Yep.
This hammer is definitely a hammer.
18.
Okay.
Damn.
Yeah. Len is like, I know how to make stone spear tips. And I've hunted with them before, but yeah, so I will even give you, you can tell that like the wrapping on most everything looks really solid, like to keep stuff in place. Like that's in your wheelhouse. For Runa and Rosa, the things that he's made are functional and almost completely without any kind of aesthetic definition. Does that make sense? Like very deliberately so. Like most smiths kind of feel the need to imprint something to make it like for sale. Does that make sense? Because they need to be memorable. They need to like, why would you buy this as opposed to any other kind of tool when there's like multiple blacksmiths and stuff like that? Thank you, branding. He is not branding, and you think the reason that he's not branding is because his tools are intended to survive decades of use. Like people aren't going to be coming back for a new hammer or a new like crowbar because the one that they have is going to keep forever, as long as they change out the handle and whatnot periodically. It's extremely durable. There's no maker's mark on them. Like incredibly talented artist, terrible merchant.
Well,
And he's doing this with like a forge that actively gives him penalties when he's making his rolls.
let me look around and be like, so what are we here for?
Yeah.
I need to talk to him.
Yeah. What you had first taken for like a shed for the storage of supplies is actually like you see Kavi coming out of it. You realize that the house that this is set up in the backyard of is not where he's living. He's just using this space. And he kind of, he like squints in the daylight and covers his eyes and like looks up at Runa. And he definitely has the look of like fairly hungover. But he immediately starts to like stoke the forge and begin getting to work for the day. Is like not even like a gruff hello, it's just like a tiny nod of acknowledgement. Does that make sense?
I have a couple questions for you.
He nods.
There's a man I presume to be Vestin, who has become quite prevalent in issues happening around. And she's going to describe the man.
So she's describing Ruin.
Yes.
The Ruin mage. He says, it sounds like a lot of destitute out in the camps outside the city.
Yes. He
He
showed up.
done what's he done to cross your path?
Well, for one, when I went to have my vision, the last thing I remember was him. He was the last thing I saw in that vision. And then apparently Wimmelpropst saw him in the tower before the Iron Prince took his fall. And I looked in on him, and he gave birth to. Now imagine I'm saying the right thing. A bunch of snakes.
Verschlingen.
Yes, that. She said that.
Yeah, and you see his eyebrow shoots up. It like gives birth to snakes. And
I think he's going to become a bigger issue.
you said he gave you that mark. He kind of gestures to the ruin mark.
Yes. The last time I looked in on him.
And he kind of gestures you closer, just as you sit like next to the forge. His hand is like iron as he grabs your arm and kind of turns it just enough that he can like study the ruin mark. He says, there's so much fear about this mark, many Scaregin won't even learn it. They fear their course themselves, their villages, their loved ones.
Yes.
He looks thoughtful into the fire for a while. He says, how long has it been since you heard the story of how the Scaregin came to be?
You should know this, but however, I do not.
He's probably told you as a child, you know, like in the way that like
Yeah.
mythology is transmitted and stuff like that. And he kind of looks to Len and Rosa and he kind of gestures to like some other, like they're not even really benches, they're just more like semi-comfortable stones.
Len will just do the slab squat nearby.
Yeah, and he says, in the ancient days, when the Vestin were in the Great Northern Islands, they were survivors who dealt with snow and cold, with very little land that could grow crops of any kind. And a great dragon came to them and offered them power. They did not trust the dragon, and they turned it away. And so the dragon began raising villages, began destroying and eating all that resisted it. And so one of the great chiefs, the Vestin, sent out a call for brave warriors and brave heroes from every tribe. And all tribes sent the first. Oh man, I'm totally, but it's not Carls or Thralls. The
Jarls?
well, Jarls is the king, but there's also one for just warriors, and I'm completely blanking it at the moment.
Thanes?
Yes, thank you. The Thanes from every tribe joined, and they decided that they would take the battle to the dragon. I have heard two versions of that story. One from the Scaregin, who taught my own tribe, and says, and another from a drunken lout. says, who was not welcome long in our village and was kicked out soon after. The version that I grew up hearing was that the mighty Thanes and the Jarl, they fought the dragon, they slew it, and when they destroyed it, the sheer cosmic forces that went into the making of it ripped apart, and each of them was branded with a part of the primal forces of creation. Says the drunkard's version was that they lost and they begged for their lives. And the dragon once again offered them power, and this time they accepted. And they returned to their clans and used the power that had been given them to take over their tribes, to become the Jarls of the next generation, to become Scaregin. Says both of those stories agree that those who were branded by that power never died, never faded. And thus we have our belief in Valhalla, that if your name persists forever, you will live forever in Valhalla. Those forces that they commanded have become their names. Those names cannot be written out of the world. This person, you say, wields ruin as no other has.
Yes.
Says, by the legends, Ruin himself destroyed everything around him. Everything that he loved, everything that he cared about was destroyed just by virtue of his presence. Those that he loved sickened. Those that were his children died. Those that were his tribe fell.
What would the man who has nothing left and cannot die seek to do? I suppose that
The dwarf kind of he reaches into the fire and he kind of takes it like a bar of iron, and he dips it like fast enough into water that like Runa, you can kind of see this coming because you see that he cools it so fast that the metal turns brittle instead of hardening as it probably should, right? And he picks it and he just takes it in hand and he snaps it. Says, my life was nothing but pain and I could not end it. What would I do?
Hurt others.
Destroy until there was nothing left.
seek out the dragon and see if it will take it back. That would be what I would do, but I suppose that
You are
depends on.
kind, Len.
And if the dragon said no?
Ruin the dragon. But what if that is what we cross every day? But there's a dead dragon there. Just what he is attempting with these snakes does not make sense. But just because it does not make sense now does not mean it is not part of a larger grand design.
Says, what are these snakes? They're monsters, yes?
Yes.
Says, in a land filled with monsters and monster hunters.
Mm-hmm. But these, I think, are far deadlier than much of what your average monster hunter faces.
Says, you've been in Eisen for some time. Says, if monsters threatened Eisen and were beyond the swords of those that were here, how do you think the Eisen would treat them?
As dire threats, and possibly they would turn to the church.
Or they would run. If nothing else, you protect yourself, see?
There's
Eisen
nowhere-
are not much known for retreating.
These people would not run, and many of them have nowhere else to go. They would
Says,
panic, they would fight, and they would fall.
he kind of like takes the little broken spar of metal and he points towards like the edge of the city. Because Finehearth is like sort of right on the edge of despair. It's like one of the easiest places for people to come in and cross over without getting harassed by guards and stuff like that. Says beyond those wall of tents, he says, some people who've had their lives ruined are fields that have been destroyed by blood and artillery and fire and death. Says this land is ruined.
But it could make a comeback unless things were continually pushed. And I think one of the biggest fears is if there are pressures outside that force despair itself to frenzy in terror, despair will make its way into the city en masse. All of those desperate, starving, terrified people will force their way into the city.
And the
And from
well-armed
there,
and well-fed people of this city will fight back and cut them down.
and both sides will lose. And Eisen will be even less able to repel an invasion or a bigger threat. I miss hunting. Hunting was simple.
Kavi kind of looks to Runa. He says, did I answer your question?
I believe so. Thank you. Also, if you haven't already, might I request that sword?
It will take a few days.
Of course.
Says,
We have time.
And I'm not too proud to say that I will need money for the blade beforehand.
Oh, here, money, good.
How much are you giving him?
I don't know how much a good blade would
So
cost.
a proper like rapier is. Somebody got the professions thing handy. I can look it up.
Oh, possessions?
Well, there's the in the handouts or in the lore stuff in the compendium, there should be an equipment guide. So we'll worry about the specifics later. I know it's not in like you guys are going to be able to afford it from your section of the income from the Playhouse. The Playhouse generates quite a lot of money, like a surprising amount, given that even when you guys are splitting it, it's still enough to like cover most expenses for everybody that isn't a noble person.
I live in nobles. Then yeah, Len will just give him whatever a good blade would cost. Like the fully completed blade, not just what he would need to make the basic sword part himself.
Yeah, and he says, I don't want to accept any coin for the labor. Says just enough to cover the ore.
You are doing an important service. This blade will save someone important and serve them well. So yes, please take.
And it will
This.
protect somebody important, at least to us.
Indeed.
The last blade I forged didn't protect the one who needed it. But thank you for your faith.
It seems hardly your fault. But yes, so here's money. Thank you for your wisdom. Now
We
let's go
are-
plot the murder.
We are planning to stake out Joran's house tonight, learn the behavior of the guards, learn rotations,
You have
and
more
try to
plan
figure
than
out a
that?
plan. This is step one of trying to figure out a better plan.
Just promise me that knowing the guards rotation won't be all you do before you charge in. So
I promise. I'm smarter than that.
I thought Red was too.
I learned from my mother.
She was definitely smarter.
There you go. There's your assurance.
He says, I know you are not an adept yet. He says, but when the time comes, this blade is going to be something that you can mark. He says, I am going to leave a portion of it unforged for you to finish.
Thank you.
Also, Len's going to purchase a crowbar while he's there. It's never a bad idea to have a really good crowbar. 2 crowbars, because Gav's getting one too.
Absolutely fine. He has like a range of like tools and stuff like that. And after you like purchase, he says, I only do weapons on commission, but if you are interested.
I have no doubt eventually my spear will need replacement, and I will definitely seek you out at that time, honored elder.
Oh, please don't start with that.
And like seeing everyone buy weapons and like worrying he's going to look to Rosa. She's like, I do not fight.
He says, nor do I.
I do.
See, Len. Yes, you do.
Okay, let's go do the thing.
All right.
Oh, sorry, maybe more like a transition wash.
Yeah. So okay. So we're going to cut over to Gav and Hans. Did Hans want to talk to somebody before he went to the house?
The house was in what was the house in?
Finer
It's in
Hearth.
Finer.
Okay. I'll go to the house first and then probably dip out to talk to Henry after we've kind of investigated this place a little bit.
Okay. So the house isn't hard to get into. It's the thing that is remarkable about it is mostly just that it's unoccupied in a city, in a district particularly, where property is incredibly valuable. Like this is a relatively modest house, a small house that would be ideal for like a group of like 4 to 5 or something like that. But like the houses to either side of it are easily like built 2-3 levels above fire code. There's not really a fire code in the city, but what is considered smart in how high you would build something in a city where fire could run through everything. Does that make sense? So all right, the getting into it isn't hard. Like the locks are extremely rare and expensive, so for most people locks are just call the guard, or have somebody home, or etc.
Locks
and
what
then
you hit the guy with when he tries to break into your place.
So it's usually just a matter of force. It's a sturdy door. The house on the inside, there's not a single wall in the place. It is just literally like the 4 walls that provide the outside of it, and there's no internal rooms. There's no bathroom. There's nothing. There's no like changing areas. There's no furniture of any kind. And the floor of the house is stained brown.
It's ground?
Brown, stained brown. You can smell dried blood. And you're guessing that the blood that's dried here is a couple days old, but there's so much of it that it's literally changed the color of the wood.
Damn.
Nobody looks at what happens in Fine Hearth.
What's even worse is that there's slits between, like, because there's a sub basement, or there's like a basement to this. What that means is that the blood didn't pool here. There's been enough on top of it that it's still
Yeah.
stayed when it had a place to drain away.
Mhm.
The guards will not bother with this.
I don't think
We are
anyone
going
would.
to- Maybe we tell the priest.
Perhaps one
but
of the
we need
priests.
to find out why.
Well, not to mention the captain of the guard in this area is the one that Hans was specifically requested to investigate.
Yeah, is the one that's specifically turning a blind eye to all this stuff theoretically. Does it look like the house has been kind of like torn down and converted at some point?
Let's do wits rolls. And keen senses will qualify, and any kind of your enforcer will work as well because that's investigative.
Oh, nice.
I will let criminal work as well for Gav.
Okay. Gives me a couple extra dice. Queen and
11 at the
Okay.
best.
7.
Not too much more you're able to really turn up. You are able to find the area where the rat catchers came through, but it's actually not even at this building. Does that make sense? It's like the next building over, and then they went through underneath. There's the thing that stands out to Hans is that if people were like butchered here, there's no meat. Does that make sense? There's no, like, you find some like finger bones and stuff like that that are down in the area below, and a lot of like small jewelry and stuff like that. Gav is able to put together enough that what he can tell is happening is that those people who are being killed here, their valuables are being taken off of them. Does that make sense? The things that have fallen through are the things that slipped out, and they were just like, fuck, because I went through between the boards, and they didn't bother to go down to get it.
they are looting.
Seems so. And then taking the bodies somewhere else. And disposing of them somewhere else, or somehow.
Is there anything really of note in the basement?
It's like an accidental basement. Does that make sense? Like, it was never dug out to be one. It's just the when they leveled the building and built the floorboards across, the ground was uneven enough that it's formed a sort of basement belowhand. Does that make sense? And they didn't have enough money to like fill it in with anything. So there's one side like where the dirt goes all the way to the top. Does that make sense? And the other side where like Gav can stand upright.
It's like a glorified crawl space.
Okay.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, an in-between space. Okay. Now, Bison does not remember the link here. Was this from this like Finer Hearth's captain of the guard?
The rat catchers were the ones who told
The rat catchers, right.
When he was kind of mentioning the various bad things he'd seen in the city, he was like, and they didn't want to bring it to the captain of the guard because they don't trust him in this area.
Yeah. So there's no real evidence here that we can see, just scattered bones, blood, and
the amount of blood, people have died here. At least a dozen, if not twice that, depending on the blood drain.
And we don't see like any like culty shit, like no altar, no anything like that.
No. So the one recourse that you might have at this point, I know the investigation is kind of stonewalled, but Gav knows that every building that belongs to somebody in Freeburg is recorded in the Hall of Records. The Hall of Records will have an owner listed for this, or else it would have been sold to somebody else already. Like one of the few kind of sacrosanct things so people aren't killing their neighbors for, like a home front, is that you have to own the property that you're in, and that ownership is recorded in the Hall of Records. the playhouse, like the big deal about it was that it was still in the names of the homeowners who had all left and who had been paid for the property, but the deed had never been properly transferred.
Right.
And so that was the thing that you kind of used your influence with Wilma to fix in order to like be the owners of the playhouse. And they were happy to pay that out in order to know that the playhouse wasn't going to get taken over at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody owns this place. There is big building in city district that has records of every homeowner in city. I cannot read, but you look like you have education.
I would be able to read. I mean, knowing the owner would be something at least.
Because we cannot find anything here. And he kind of like looks outside to the probably nobody hanging around a, you know, probably well-known cursed house. Yeah, you're muted.
Yeah.
I think you muted yourself, yes.
Yeah, I did. This is the kind of house that like maybe the local kids would dare each other to go in, but like
Yeah, it's the local haunted house, basically.
Yeah.
I kind of figured. So people ignore a place like this. It's bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
But all the records would have something. That is another
Good.
side of town.
Yeah, that should be a good place to check.
the records will be in Steinhold, which is in the center of town, which is actually next to.
It's not that far.
You can still easily get to it before end of day if you want to.
Did you want to do that before we head out to Despair?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let us go to the Hall of Records and investigate.
Are you both going in, or is it just Hans?
Gav doesn't really have anything other to do other than miscellaneous supplies acquisition for what he has planned for tonight.
Fair.
That's probably, let's do that.
Well,
on
tonight
to
being
going outside.
next
Yeah.
session.
Yeah, that's fine.
Like when we come to burn that bridge.
Sure. So the Hall of Records is like one of the largest buildings in Stein Hall, and it is also like it's not guarded. And when you go in, it is kind of like eerie, the amount of echoing that it has. It is like nothing but big bookshelves, right? And like you can hear the attendant before you see her because it's like click, 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 shoes on the stone floor. And she's got like an armful of scrolls, and when she comes around a corner and like the both of you are standing there, there's an immediate kind of like and like scrolls up in the air at the sight of Gav. Hans is not well. Hans has his own different kind of intimidating. He's at least not wearing like the Black Panther hand at the moment and whatnot.
Yeah.
But there is still an eeriness. You know what I'm saying?
Gav completely oblivious is like Guten Tag.
I'll catch a couple, pick up the scrolls and whatnot.
Yeah.
Apologies for my friend startling you.
She's like, yes, he's very tall.
Indeed, he is. Yeah, he's surprising for even around here.
Yeah, she's an Eisen woman with the small advantage, which is kind of like rare unto itself. You know what I'm saying? Like, she does not break 410.
Itsy bitsy.
Yeah, and so she's just sort of like looking up and up at Gav as she recollects the scrolls and sort of like immediately starts to like reorder them in her arms.
We've come to look into the owner of a certain property out in the Final Hearth, part of an investigation with both Madame Probst and head captain Vasya Wilhelm.
Oh, she kind of like, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but do you have some proof that you're acting on their orders?
Damn it, I should have thought of that. Let me double check. Kind of like pats his pockets and whatnot.
I don't know as you've been given anything
I don't believe
official.
you've been given like a seal or anything like that.
She says, I'm afraid I would have to charge you to look anything up.
But that is fine. It is faster than going to get perhaps a piece of paperwork or something. I don't mind.
She says it's just a research fee. She says otherwise I would get nothing done in a day.
Exactly. Of course.
She kind of like, do you know where the house is?
Yes. Describe the location and.
I don't get out in the city much. Come follow me.
Oh, yes.
She rounds like one of the bookshelves. The most accurate map of the entire city that you've ever seen is like on a table. Does that make sense? Like, and it's not just on a table, it looks like it has been like carved into the table. And there are little like models of every single building. Down to like the image that we're looking on, you know what I'm saying? Like you could literally pick up any of the houses on it because they're all there. It's incredibly detailed. And then every single building has a little like kind of toothpick in it and a number and a letter.
Get Gav's assistants to identify the exact building on the map.
I mean, that's literally Gav's neighborhood, so he's like,
Yeah.
he's over here.
And she kind of she has to like push herself up on the table and lean forward to like see it. Did you just lift her up?
No, but
if you wanted to, that's fine. It's
just really funny if you did.
It's not a roll. She's very small. She does turn beet red, you know, and then she just kind of like, I have it. Thank you very much. Her blush is like up to like her scalp.
And yeah, Gav just plays it straight. He's like, you're just trying to help.
Thank you very much. Scurries off. Help yourself to some refreshments. It takes you a little bit to find said refreshments, but there is actually a little like reading area and tea and whatnot.
Nice.
Hans is, you've actually been to an academy, right? So you've actually been to a formal place of education. You cannot make heads or tails of the organizational system in this hall. Like it might well be that this woman is the only person who can.
Fair enough. It's almost big on the inside. My goodness.
Yeah, you think you actually like stepped down a few steps coming in, and like like there was like a dugout kind of area to like allow in
the entire building is at a slight angle on the floor, so it's bigger the farther you go in.
Yeah, it's the kind of design of it is like you think that at some point it was like maybe a temple or something in the old Stonehold, the old Steinhold. But it's definitely like of the older architecture of the city, and it's been something that's been reconverted. Let's see. I'm just gonna look one thing up real quick. It takes like 20 minutes before she comes back. And she's got kind of like a stack of scrolls. And she says, so this is the chronological order of the house's ownership. Are you only interested in the most recent ownership?
It might not be a bad idea to find out last couple of owners.
It's a good point.
In case there's in case there is plot.
So she traces it back for the last like 30 fucking years in the matter of like half an hour. Does that make sense? And I just want to be clear, like this level of organization does not exist in most other cities. Does that make sense? So like the house was originally built by like an occupant who like got drafted into the war, or no, sorry, this is Feinhardt. This is not. It was originally built sort of in like the wake after the war, before Freiburg had really gotten its big population rush. They the original owner like tried to open a business and operate out of it. It failed. That happened like 4 more times. The next people who like bought the place and tried to start a business, it was just not quite on the road enough, and there wasn't enough money in Feinhardt for most businesses to take off. Does that make sense? It was then bought by Redmond Earhart, who Gav knows is just the richest fucker in the city. Does that make sense? He is like, he's a real estate bear, and he has the money to, like, anybody who wants to leave the city quickly can just sell him their property, and he will turn around and resell it like a few months later for like 2x, 3x, 4x the price without making a single change to a place. He has the money to just do that and sit on things, and he's the richest guy in Freeburg, right?
Hashtag fuck landlords.
He's not carrot colored, but
Yeah.
he's so it was then sold to she kind of like blinks in surprise. She says to Eisen nobility, actually. She says the house is owned by the De Rosen family.
What would Gav know of the De Rosens?
They had Seeger lands that were sold to the Sissies to Sissies.
The what, sorry?
The Der Rosens, their lands originally belonged to the Seiss to Seiss family.
Okay.
Sorry, their lands originally belonged to the Seeger family. Let me start that sentence over. The Der Rosens were a noble family that served the Seeger family. Their lands in the peace deal that ended the fighting between Eisen and Montaigne were given to Montaigne. And then those lands were given by Emperor to the Seiss to Seiss family.
Okay. Now, I don't think Gav would actually know Honorine's family name. Even if she told them, he probably wasn't paying attention. No offense.
Hans might have picked it up, and I think Gerard
Yeah.
had mentioned it as well. But
I believe so.
Yeah.
So is owned by.
Somehow it does not surprise me.
So he's owned by Montaigne?
Yes, it's just
she
owned
kind of
by.
like just laughs, and she says, "No, the De Rosens are Eisen nobility,
Mhm.
but they lost their lands, and so they've made a number of investments here in Freeburg to try to recoup their lost income."
They're very bad at it. That house is shithole.
Oh well, I'm
Pardon,
not really.
pardon my Montaigne.
Yeah, she like flushes the shithole.
So it is owned by nobility again. It's interesting.
They still own it, and it hasn't been listed as being on the market.
And they've owned it for how long again?
Since they bought it from Redmond Earhart 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay.
And they are current owners, huh?
Yes.
Maybe worth looking into. Not sure if they're taking visitors. He's
You
saying
mean
this
like
to
how many
Hans.
other properties do they own in the city?
Actually, yes. Where are other places? Very concerning.
Ooh, yes.
I'm afraid I'm going to need another 3 guilder to research that.
It's no trouble. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you very
This
much.
is very valuable information.
Enjoy the tea.
Thank you.
Scurries away.
Gav's like finger and thumbing.
Tiny teacup.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's little tiny crackers and like little tiny cuts of cheese and stuff like
Little
that. Like
skeleton pinky up.
Yeah.
And of course, it has to be the skeleton hand. Just
the teacups genuinely look like they might be sized for like her hands, like just the first ones that she found comfortable, because they do seem a little small for both Gav and hands. So
It's one of those Fisher Price teacup sets.
The best.
Oh yeah, remember those.
The
With
fine
tiny,
china.
with the tiny teapot and all that, yeah.
sorry, I am.
Yeah. Bite it off. Okay, I'm glad that everybody else knows exactly which tea set I'm talking about.
And that's got to be like a universal childhood experience. especially for anyone who had sisters, because I think the older of my two younger sisters got that as like a birthday gift when she was like 5 or something for Christmas.
I made my dad
Babysitter.
sit down for tea with me.
Babysitter.
I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure I clubbed my cousin with one when we were younger.
Me and my brother would have Game Boy fights. We got really mad at each other. We threw our Game Boys at each other
Oh,
because
You're talking the original brick ones?
Oh.
Oh yeah.
oh yeah.
the ones that practically fight back.
Yeah.
Uh,
Still worked.
Yeah, because it's a brick.
Yeah. They were built like the Nokia phones.
I was gonna say the Nokia phone of handheld systems.
Yeah, literally.
So you guys hear like the creak of wheels as she's coming back, and you realize that she's gone to the trouble of getting a cart, as there's so many like scrolls loaded on it.
Oh.
And she kind of comes in and she like puts it down.
If
So-
you needed this much help, I could have assisted.
Well, that's very sweet of you. She kind of. My name is Hannelore.
I'm Gav.
Hans. It is a pleasure to meet you.
She says, "A pleasure to meet you as well." She says, and thank you very much for your patronage of the Hall of Records.
When she does actually leave, Gav goes over. I don't think she gets out very often.
Can't imagine she would. Let me look. Have you seen this place?
So she begins like unstacking the scrolls like onto the city hall or onto the like table next to the map table. And she says, it looks as though they own 30 to 40 properties here in the city.
Are they all in fine or hard?
Well, the largest one is, the most significant one is actually, she says the ceramics workshop that's here in the city is the largest employer in Fine Hearth. And until I did the research, I didn't actually know that they were the ones that owned it.
Oh.
And like Gav knows about the ceramics workshop because it is the largest employer of people from Despair. Like, because it is 90% of it is completely unskilled labor. We need you to lift clay, you know what I'm saying, and move it from here to here. But the fight that Gerard got into when he first got into the city was with employees of the ceramics workshop.
Sorry, my brain completely missed that.
When Gerard first got into the city, he got into a fight with a bunch of laborers. They were employees of the
right.
ceramics workshop when he was looking into the De Rosas.
Oh man, if Gerard was here, he'd be like,
Yeah.
the monkey meme. So is
They own that workshop. You said that's the most significant of the real estate holdings?
It's the largest. Everything that they have has been registered as a business, even the building that you're looking at.
Oh.
But I don't know how many of them are actually operating as businesses.
Yeah. And that initial one we looked at certainly is not
Yes, that one is registered as a warehouse.
a warehouse.
of and actually the Gav's about to say what he thinks is a warehouse of and then stops.
I think Hans just kind of like snaps over and gives him like a no.
Nope. Yeah.
The majority of the things that they own are in Fine Hearth. But they have a few outside. They have a property in the Merchants Quarter. They have a property, and then they have several other properties that, as you're kind of looking up and comparing them, the thing that you notice that they have in common, including the Merchants District, is that all of those properties are on the water. So they're all riverfront properties of different portions of the river.
Gav's just sort of like groans, like likely smugglers. Is if I have a lot of riverfront properties, I'm not saying I do because I mean look at me. Is easy way to get goods in and out.
Easy way to move things, it's for sure.
These people, what we were looking at, they may have been mules.
Yeah, that's just quite possible.
This thinking, it all makes Gav's head hurt.
It's something to make my head hurt too. There's so many different things going on now.
Just as I find that reading by a very poor light can often do that as well, but tea usually helps.
Indeed.
Just like pour another cup.
I'm helping.
I want Hans to make a wits roll real quick.
Okay. Any particular type? The one that I could potentially
If you have
add things
anything
to, or
that's going to
no?
be like reading people,
I don't think so. Let's double check. Yeah, not particularly.
just give me a roll wits roll then.
I have 10.
Okay. You were pretty sure that the tiny librarian is fascinated by the very tall Gav.
That makes sense. Oh. Okay. I think this concludes our visit for today. Once again, I really appreciate all of your help today. We will quite possibly be returning soon to request more information and hopefully,
Absolutely. Please feel free anytime. If you need anything indexed.
of course.
It was very nice coming to this place.
Indeed.
It was very nice to meet you, Gav and Hans.
And
Just once more.
to meet you as well.
I could hear the part where she quickly added in and Hans.
So good. Well, we have even more leads to pile onto the pile now.
To pile onto the pile, I love that.
This was
So
much easier when all we had to do was punch cultists in face.
No kidding.
All right. Hans is headed out to despair after that, right?
Yeah, just as we're
So-
walking out, I kind of like bump Gav gently, be like, I think she may have a bit of a fancy for you. It may do you some good to return if you want to meet some new people.
Gav is completely oblivious. It's like, I do not know what you mean, friend Hans. She's doing job.
Yeah.
We ask her for information. She's very happy to give us information. Do not understand.
Could be the hours getting to me.
She appears to have forgotten to charge you for the second looking up of things, by the way.
Oh shit! I
The one
realized that
actually took all the work.
Yeah, the second one.
All right, so I want to pause here because we're 15 minutes from when we would normally end. And we did lose some time in the middle. I'm good to go a little bit longer, so long as everybody else is.
I'm
But
good.
I also know we have people recovering from sickness. I want to make sure that our producer is okay to keep going. Okay.
I've got the capacities for RP. I do not have the capacities for work tomorrow, so my rest will be sleeping in most likely.
All right. All right. So the outside of the city is you get to where Otto and Henry and his camp of like people, they're doing a little bit better. They got some pay to like help during the last feast. I think you'd given them some coins for that.
Yeah.
And it's even a small amount of coins. It's really interesting how far it goes out here. You know what I'm saying? Just so that you can tell that it's given them a little bit of like cachet with the other like survivors and people surviving out here in despair. It looks like there's like 2 kids that are kind of hanging out by their camp now. And that probably just means that there's some kids that they can afford to feed that didn't but it actually, as you're approaching, it looks like they're getting ready to pack up.
Guten Tag, Henry. I hope I have not caught you at an inconvenient time.
Says no. She says we're getting ready to decide what to do with ourselves.
Oh, I see. Are you has there been some improvements to the situation? Are you planning on travel?
Says we we got an offer in the city, he says, with the Knights of the Rosencross. He says, 5 of us, he says, were, I guess you weren't there for it. He says, there was a bit of a skirmish, he says, at the last feast, at the first feast, but also.
Indeed.
He says, there was a guard, he says, that was misbehaving, says, with a group of people, he says, and I may have put him in his place. He says, and word of it, he says, got back, he says, to the Knights of the Rosencross, he says, and an invitation was sent out here to come and join them. He says, I think they're doing good work. He says, it'll be a year as an initiate, which I cannot say that I'm looking forward to, but hopefully some opportunities after that.
The first year with any company like that is always sort of a trial by fire. But well, that is great news. I wish you the best of luck with the ventures there.
Well, it's in the city,
Goodness.
he says, and I believe we're allowed outside of the chapter house. I'm not entirely sure how it works.
I'll certainly still come by and pay visits. How is
I'm trying to figure out what to do about Otto and a few of the others as well.
Indeed. I will also look into some assistance for them, especially for Otto specifically. He was a good friend.
I asked the headmaster, and he said that I would be able to come out on a daily basis to check on everyone, and I intend to do that. But that is not the same, he says, and with some of the dangers that you know of, he says, moving through this area.
Indeed. I will also look into some care for the orphans. A brief favor, if you don't mind. I had a question, since you've likely seen more than your fair share of the unsavory dealings out here. There are look around, see if there's any particular people I wouldn't necessarily want hearing what I'm asking him.
Everyone around you looks like they might well fall into that category.
That's fair. Yeah, I'll just kind of keep it to hushed tones, and perhaps shoo a couple of the children away from it. I'll give them like a couple of coins. Go get some food and some snacks. A bit of privacy for us as well.
Yeah.
There is rumors of some of the better off people coming out here and promising opportunity and taking denizens of this place down to the Schwarzenwalden. And
no, not all the way to the Schwarzenwalden.
Oh, not all the way there.
Only like 2 Konigreiks away.
Oh, that's right.
But there are forests around here. They're just not that forest.
Right. I thought it was specifically that forest. Okay.
No. Sorry.
And taking them out to the forests, and then some reports are that they're being hunted for sport, some kind of sadistic pleasure. Have you heard anything about this? Is there if you wish not to speak on it, if it is something that is unnerving, that is more than okay. I'm just it is concerning to hear these stories with the current state of affairs.
He says, I've heard stories like that. He says, he says somebody tried to give Otto a haircut. He says, I've heard of people, he says, being fully scalped for that business.
It is quite concerning.
Says, did you hear the Cardinal speak?
Indeed, yeah.
He says, what he said about this being the place, he says, with the best of humanity, it's true. He says, it also has the worst.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, I have seen people give their last roll of bread to a child, he says. But what I've seen over and over again is that those who seem to come in with ill intent are the ones who make the best promises. As somebody seeking work frequently, the ones that I trust are the ones who say, I can only give you a few coins. I can't afford to pay you the world, but it will be honest work. And if they throw in food, it's usually all it takes. It says the ones who come in promising dozens of guilder for a day's labor.
Mhm.
It's just those are the ones we usually don't see again.
Yeah, those are the ones you'd avoid. It is good to get some confirmation from the front lines, I suppose.
I know what draws everyone here is that there are no laws,
Mhm.
he says, but there still needs to be justice.
There certainly does. He
He
steals
says-
himself, and certainly there is much work to be done. But there is progress being made. I can assure you of that. Not better leave him out here. If you are to be, are you packing up to be departing by the end of the day?
He says, well, those of us who've been given an offer are going into the city. He says, and the others, those of us who can afford to, we're leaving whatever we can to them. He says, Otto, yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what can be done about Otto.
I will take care of him. I have
Understood?
indeed, at the very least, until we can find some honest place that actually cares about them, actually cares about Otto and the other orphans like him.
I don't know if there is a place like that in Freeburg.
Perhaps it is high time that something. Perhaps it is high time for a bit more change. I have space to spare in my abode, and I will ensure he is safe and well taken care of.
It says if you need somebody to help take care of him, I'm sure there's plenty of people out here that would be happy to do so in return for a few coins and a bed.
Indeed. That is another thing I will look into.
Well, come by the chapter house if you ever need to speak to me.
Of course. Yes, I will most certainly be paying you more visits.
I think Otto tends to move fine with us when we move as a group. So we'll come by to where you live and we'll bring him there. That way you won't be alarmed.
Mm-hmm. It is good. Don't want to change things up on him too quickly. I know that it is hard enough being in his state. I wish there was more that could be done.
Yeah.
Like stares off in the distance for a second. And
He likes Jody's. He still seems to respond to them. Jody's, I don't know if you know, they're like the marching songs that the military usually uses when they're traveling, that somebody will call and somebody else will respond, or like the group will respond.
Cadence.
Yeah.
Okay. And he said he would still like sometimes respond to those?
He seems to like him. Sometimes he stamps his feet.
Just good to know.
Dirtier the better.
I don't know any that are clean, so we're a foul-mouthed party. Just for sure.
But all right. So I think we have a few more investigations that we're doing, right? Because now we have the midnight stuff. And I'm going to flash through these a little bit faster. So we've got Len doing owl magic, and Gav's doing sort of regular skulking about, right? Is any
the regular kind of skullduggery.
And Runa is providing backup to Len. Is Rosa just providing an extra pair of eyes, or is she giving some luck and then going? Or
yeah, I'll give some luck.
Okay.
First time I'll do it.
Gonna describe how you do that?
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you this. Are you okay with being kissed? Are you okay with your character being kissed for Len?
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
So I'm gonna use swords. is the skill that I'm giving him.
Okay.
So Rosa
Good.
takes off her mask and just immediately, Len, I am sorry. Please do not take this the wrong way. What is your full name?
Len Costin.
And so she'll actually take you like hands on your face, and you'll watch as her eyes go black as she does this. Len Costin, Len Costin, Len Costin, and she kisses you on the lips.
And Ruda's just there like,
Go ahead and make a roll, please.
How do I roll this? This is my first time.
It's
Her
your
face is
resolve
just
plus
like,
your it's
"What?"
your resolve plus your swords.
what?
Keep your resolve. For every 15 that you get, Lena's going to get a swords die, and for every 10 that you get, you're going to get a swords curse.
6, keep 3. Got it.
And let me know if any of your 10s explode twice.
Nope. I got a 21 total.
Okay, so you're going to take 2 curse dice.
Okay.
And so whenever you roll a 10 on those curse dice will go away. So the curse will wear off. And the only way curses wear off is by you getting engaged in conflict of some kind and actually rolling that. So anytime you are doing anything that is conflict led, you will get an additional swords die. If you roll a 1 on it, it goes away. And otherwise, you just add it to your roll as normal. It is a kept die.
Okay. So for that, like if I need to roll, I should do like my normal roll and then a separate single
Or-
roll. So
I'm sorry, it's an unkept die. It doesn't,
okay.
but it can count towards increasing your thresholds for stuff. So what I think would be the thing to do is whenever you roll, like you know how it shows up with like the 6 dice that got rolled, is it will just say that the first die in any roll that has a cursed die or a blessed die is for Sans, it's the first and second die are the curse ones. Oh wait, that's not going to work because you're going to have to actually subtract those from the roll. She subtracts the curse dice. You add the blessed dice.
Okay.
So yeah, I think the best thing to do is going to be 2 separate rolls whenever you're doing swords related rolls.
Okay.
And swords is conflict of any kind. It can be an argument. It can be a fight.
Okay. Yeah, Len is just gonna be like, definitely a different magic than mine.
Runa just pats Len on the back.
Like I
some,
don't remember
like,
having to kiss a bear.
Firm.
It is how sorte is done. I will let you all be. I am now not the best person to have around here.
Oh, just gonna kiss and run. All right. Well,
What about me?
yeah. Does Runa need luck too?
Does Runa want luck?
Here, let's see if it works. Runa is, no, just kidding.
The characters don't know her last name.
No.
No, they don't. That's one of many reasons Len would not just randomly grab and try and smooch her, even if it was to try and make magic work. Len is not that guy. But all right, so after a minute, he's just gonna be like, okay, and like hand off his boar spear and such, and then he's gonna turn into an owl, and they get to watch him do this as long as they've got like a relatively secluded place for him to do so.
Go ahead and make the transformation roll.
Fails the roll. You turn into a duck.
Runa just going, where's mine, is the equivalent to any man going, where's my hug? I did say that out of character though.
Yeah.
I just thought it would be funny.
20?
Let's see. Did we write down the target numbers for your different?
I don't think we did actually. No.
Son of a bitch.
Son of beach.
I'm a 2 rating an owl for Pyrium.
Yeah, it's just the static target number for the transformation that I don't have in front of me. All right, I'm gonna let it go through.
Right.
It's been a bit since you've flown, you know, you're definitely like not the most graceful owl. That's
No,
Bam!
it's
As he flies off.
not quite like that, but it's gonna be some like frantic flapping, like gotta get up, gotta get height, gotta get height. Okay, I'm gliding, I'm good. This is what owls do. I'm all right. And gliding, listening, and he's gonna just make his way over, kind of do a few high-level circles
Okay.
of the building, doing counts and such.
So the manse is it's got like a hedge and iron wrought fence and gate around it. There's 4 entrances and exits, 2 of which you don't see in common use. The ones that are on the side, they look like one of them is kind of built right next to where like a cart could be pulled up, so it's probably like a service entrance for people making deliveries and such like that. The actual grounds themselves are fairly well tended. You can see there's like a small shed where a groundskeeper lives. And I don't know if it's clear compared to like the absolute level of like poverty that you see in much of the rest of Freeburg, that this is extremely rich, even though it's like only like a 3-story home. You know, there's a groundskeeper, there's multiple guards, some of which are visible. There's nobody patrolling at night. It looks like they're more sort of like on call in case trouble comes and stuff like that. And there is an open window on like the upper level. It's not an open window, it's actually an open door where there's a balcony. The rest of it is closed up tight. It's all the style of like the Vendel buildings that are around, the sort of like whitewashed sides and kind of color. Sorry, they're whitewashed, and then like the merchant's quarter is unique in that almost everything's like painful or colorfully painted. There's not too much that you can really see about like guard movements. They seem to change out the guards like every half hour or so, and you regularly see through the windows people like walking up and down the halls, but that does seem to sort of stop after a certain period of quiet, so as to try to like let people sleep. There's a chef in a kitchen. There's a number of like servants as well, that are likely going to potentially be collateral damage or crossfire or whatnot.
After watching for a while, Len's gonna go actually and perch on the balcony and make an owl hoot. Just kind of like make the hoot and then kind of pretend to go to sleep a little bit and just see if anybody comes to investigate the loud hoot.
Yeah, there's it's not very long, but like the first person that responds to the hoot, you see the door press open, and there's a girl that's like blonde haired, about 3 years old, who kind of like pokes her head out and just kind of gives like a like shy little wave towards the bird that's on the balcony.
Sounds good. Hoo, hoo. Fluffle out the chest feathers, do a little flap, just kind of watching.
Do you speak the Vendel tongue?
I don't.
You know some Vestin?
I know Vestin, but not Vendel.
No, they are the same language.
Yeah.
Oh, then yeah.
Okay.
Vestin.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's like keeping her hands to herself. Like she's obviously been told like you probably shouldn't touch strange animals. You know what I'm saying? But she's like definitely sort of squirming with the excitement of like wanting to. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it definitely makes sense. And he's just gonna kind of like sidle a little bit back and forth on the thing and kind of fluff and turn his head the other way and then do the cool thing that kids love, like the almost full turn of the head around to look at something and then back. basically he's hanging out for a little bit. If she gets too close, he's gonna have to act like an actual owl and fly away. But he's looking to see if he can confirm that douchebag McViking is actually in here, and like if somebody comes to get the child, or if the child's just gonna hang out for a while.
Yeah. The as she, she kind of turns and like she looks over her shoulder as well. I want you to make a wits, and if you have anything medically related, I'll actually allow your survival one as well.
Oh, okay. Wits plus survival. So 32.
Okay.
Dang.
I think I
So-
lose. I didn't roll the die separately. The sword die. Do I? Oh, this
No,
isn't
it's not a
conflict.
conflict.
Okay.
So,
So
as she turns and you kind of see like part of her neck and stuff like that, there's a particular type of scar that is fairly rare to see. The White Plague is sort of a 7C corollary for the Black Plague. The first time it broke out across Thea, it killed 1/3 of the population. Flat out. Since then, even small outbreaks have been treated with kill the entire village. Does that make sense? Like quarantine and do it like forcefully. Sometimes it's just we're going to quarantine it and you guys can't leave. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Other times it has been other times it's been like a lot more of a frightened reaction. The Inquisition has been known in Castile, at least, to have killed off a few villages that were supposedly threatened by White Plague, right?
Mhm.
The scars that it leaves are distinctive. They look, I don't know if I'm saying like the vertiglio, the kind of like white
vitiligo?
patch. Yeah, vitiligo. They look almost identical. Survivors are not unheard of. Like 2 out of 3 people will survive it. Does that make sense? So the reaction of like, let's kill everybody is considered a little overwrought by a lot of people. It's extremely rare for children to survive it. She's a 3-year-old who's got the scars of it.
Yeah. Well, if this guy's got enough money, then
Um,
Tough kid.
Money
tough
he
kid.
earned from betraying Runus people.
Yeah, not her fault though.
Nope. No, it's not. The kid's fine.
Kid's fine. Guy's gonna die. Kid's fine.
Yep.
And she as she kind of like steps closer to Yowl, the other thing that I'm gonna give you with that wits of 35 is you realize that her features are really similar to Runa's.
Huh?
Well, Runa didn't have any daughters.
Nope.
Concerned quack.
Huh. Well, when she gets
No.
closer, he's gonna, jitter and kind of move away a little more. And still just kind of trying to wait it out to see if anybody shows up. But that's an important connection to know.
Yeah, and she like the girl's kind of like being quiet, she doesn't seem to want to like wake up her parents because she would be told to stop doing this, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
But she does kind of like do her best effort at a coo back. She is not an animal expert.
No, she is not. But he's gonna play along because,
Make some noise. Bring out your parents. Let me see them.
exactly.
And there is a point after which you kind of hear like one of the doors open and you see the girl kind of like, and she tries to sort of press herself against the door, like in the when little kids are like doing hide and seek, but they're just really bad at it. Sarah's like, yes.
Hiding under a curtain. Hiding under a curtain. You can still.
She hasn't even gotten that like complex. And you see the woman come out, and she has to be related to Runa in some way. Like they're probably within a few years of each other. She has a remarkable resemblance. She also looks completely Vendel, like as far as you can tell, there's none of the braids or the sort of traditional tattooing or anything like that that normally marks a Vendel. But she like reaches down and she scoops up the little girl.
And that's when Len's
like-
going to give the frightened, thing, because that's too much for a normal owl to actually stick around for.
Yeah, and you see the woman, she kind of like, she kisses the little girl and she's like, you are not supposed to be out of bed. And
Yep. Oh, Len is definitely gonna go back with some news. And settle in, and where how both of them, or did Rosa actually just take off because of the curse?
No, she stayed.
Okay. Len's gonna reappear and
make your man roll real quick.
Man,
Otherwise this gets really awkward.
Roll
Yeah.
to man. It's 15.
21.
You're fine.
All right. Boop, 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 boop. I need to like write this down or something, but equipment and such, trinks and whatnot, like goes
It's
with.
not accessible while you're in your animal form. You can't like draw a blade that you have,
No,
but
no,
it's
but I don't get naked.
owl spear. No.
Owl spear. Okay, then he's going to just re-enlevenate and be like, well, here are what I see about the guards, but there's something more concerning, friend Aruna. Do you have sister?
No.
Close cousin?
No, not to my knowledge.
Because how to say?
Rosa, make a wits roll for me real quick.
I feel like I'm missing something. I don't know what I'm missing.
31.
Okay, so I'm just going to narrate this in the background while the two of you are talking. Runa and Len are occupied with talking with each other, but you're still kind of like within sight of the manse. Does that make sense? It's a very late at night. You met him once. You met Runa's Smith trainer, like the person who'd taken her on and stuff like that. His name is Mac. He's a Highlander. He goes up to the manse and just unlocks the gate and closes it behind him and walks in.
Yeah, and they're still talking, right?
Mhm.
Oh no.
Hmm?
Runa, you are apprentice, see?
Yes.
Signore you apprentice with just walked in as if he owned said place.
That could come in handy.
Could it not be bad news as well?
It could very well be.
Well,
This
along
is
with
good
that,
to know.
there's a woman who looks almost exactly like you without the the runes and such. And there's a little girl who looks quite a bit like you, 3 years old, survivor of the White Plague from the scars I could see. You may have family in there.
You are aunt?
As far as I know, I'm my mother's only daughter. I know nothing of my father.
Well,
And as far as I'm concerned, I am a spinning image of my mother.
well, so were they. I could not identify if the man you are after was in the house at the time. I tried to wait, but could not break my cover. But
I-
those two are very much there.
If only I could talk to my mother.
I could check your strand of fate.
Okay.
Does this involve kissing too?
No,
You just-
no.
oh.
He got
Nuts.
excited.
I'm just kind of curious. They're like, what parts of the magic are kiss and what parts of the magic aren't kiss?
If Rosa wanted to kiss everybody, like nobody would know that.
Oh, no.
Yep, no.
Yes, it is
No, no.
definitely a requirement for all spell. No.
And that Len's like, oh man, I should have gone with that. I need a kiss to turn into a bear. Come on, help me out here.
How many dice do I need to roll again? It's because I want to see if there's a fate line for parent or family for Runa inside of the
So the thing is, you need them to be within visible distance of each other.
shit. Never mind. I can't do that.
Saw a woman enter the house a while ago.
Yeah, you saw her from behind.
Rosa is upset. Aruna's
Runa.
upset.
Yeah.
Missed out on makeout magic.
Yeah, that's why.
Mooch sorcery.
This leaves more questions to be answered that I.
What? I am sorry. You can tell me to I think in Iceland it is to fuck off. What happened to your mother after you do you know?
When I woke up here, I had no memory from anything between my vision and waking up here. But I have checked in on my mother. She's somewhere in the ocean, alive.
She did not have family?
None that I know. It's our family's the one we traveled with, we sailed with.
The story that you were told was that her village was burned down. And that was part of what prompted her to name her ship the Revenge.
From her village was burnt down.
Somebody made it out they did not know about.
Maybe. Or if your mother is alive, could she be in there?
This woman seemed too young to be.
If it was my mother, she would have runes all over her body.
Yes, I saw no wounds.
There is no way to change that?
It's a Scaregin who has the gift who's never taught it. They tend to, well, the Vendel don't recognize Scaregin, but they do have schools to teach the magic. Does that make sense? And it comes out in usually slowly driving them crazy over the course of their life. That's what you've been told, is that somebody who does not learn to respect the runes, the magic will eventually just sort of drive them to madness.
She communicates that.
Other magic schools seem so messy compared to Pyrium. You are there or you are not there. Matrushka gives you gift or she does not give you gift.
You are born Strega or you are not.
What I think this means is I will need to. Yes, I'm sure there are some circumstances where that's not the case. Ahem. Honorine.
Or you
but-
sell your magic away for something else. Cough, cough.
But the Lenskaviak, well, it
It's got
seems that we are going to need to watch this place a good bit more. I
Ooh,
It seems absurd that he would be with one who looks just like me.
not necessarily. It might be his way of absolving himself of guilt for by raising and supporting someone much like you. Possibly he developed real feelings, and this is his way of dealing with that.
That makes it worse.
Yes.
I agree.
Way worse.
But now
I feel
you must.
sick.
I'm sorry to bring this news to you.
No, it's good to know.
Do you need a place to stay? Do you feel safe?
If your patron knows anything, there's no way that the man you are working for now does not recognize girl and little girl in you.
I will need to talk to him tomorrow.
Would you like one or two of us to be around just in case?
Yes.
Okay.
See.
And I also need to check on my mom. Not because I believe she's in any danger, but I'm homesick.
That is fair as well.
see.
Just in case, we can be
Dealing-
there for that as well. I do not know if this ruin rage can jump into other visions, but
Not to my knowledge.
Hmm.
I think I just need to see her.
then you will do as you must. Then we will speak to your benefactor, if that is indeed still what he is, and then we will go from there.
Yes.
And
Mm.
as
Honorine is not staying with me at the moment, so you are more than welcome.
I would like that.
is probably best that way. If you stayed with me, Gertrude would never let me hear the end of it. Like, who's that girl? How long have you been seeing each other? Where can we expect children? It's
Len's just trying to keep your cat to himself.
those are my kittens.
All right. Is it all right if we cut back to Gav now? So Gav is doing the criminal bit up in the Philosopher's Stone. So I would like this is really more about observation. So I'm going to have it be a wits and crime roll. It's supposed to just finesse and being sneaky and quiet.
It's the same number of dice.
Well, I like to be clear which one you're rolling, regardless.
No, that's fair. That is 25.
All right. So a couple of things. I'm gonna. So you're just kind of like looking for the couple in general, and the thing is it looks like the area that they frequented, they're not currently frequenting. Does that make sense? With the business that was here having kind of, the kid gotten away, it looks like they're, at least for now, like resisting the temptation to come back and do their business here again. But
They're
the
smart
other
enough
thing,
predators to move around.
and controlled enough that they're not like needing to do this all the time.
Mhm.
So the other thing is that in this district, you don't have the money to bribe the guards.
It was because they do their hunting in the Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah, because there's an extreme disparity. There are extremely poor people that are like wedged into like
Okay.
tiny little homes that are outside of the view of like most everything.
Oh, okay, I thought they were in the Merchant Quarter or in Fine Earth. that
No,
they were
they've been doing
their
it here in the
hunting.
Philosopher's Stone, which is kind of like, it's like the place for those with the most money
And
to
that
do
makes
their business.
sense. They go where they're comfortable.
Yeah, this is the area where the rich have the most influence, where the guards have the most loyalty to them. You realize that it was probably a rare streak of honesty from the guard that you interrogated last time, that he actually disclosed the names at all, probably deeply held guilt.
Yeah. Okay, so with that in mind, I think Gav, because completely changes is he's looking for likely, because he knows they're going to go to places where they can get in trouble,
Yes.
so they can make their defense. He obviously can. I'm not gonna say obviously, but I mean he rolled pretty well. He's looking for a place that would be a likely target and would be easy for him to set up his trap.
So the thing is that areas that they could hunt that have poor enough people that would be tempted there's so many targets it doesn't narrow down. Does that make sense? There's so many places in the city that they could do that. Where they would have that and also have the security of knowing the guards would come to their help if needed is a much smaller pool. It's pretty much here in the Philosopher's Stone and likely over in the playground that they could get away with something like that. But those are on the opposite sides of the map.
Yeah.
And if they live in this area, as they likely do, that's going to get more complicated. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because they're likely to know the guard themselves.
As you're kind of doing this investigation, you've gotten the sense that he's quiet enough that he probably wants you to hear him approach. Does that make sense? Because you can hear like the click of Ettore Mondavi's heels from his boots as he comes up behind you. Says, looking for a way to end these bastards.
Yeah. So Ettore did come up behind me?
Yeah.
Signor Mondavi.
It says, we share an enemy.
They need to learn a lesson. I have plans, but I need a stage.
You need a bit more than that. It says you need an ally. It says somebody who will protect you from the blowback of their friends.
I plan on embarrassing them. I do not plan on killing them.
Then you doubly need one, because these kind of people live and die by their reputation. Embarrassing them is worse than killing them.
Exactly. They hurt the child, Ettore.
I am in complete agreement about the need to punish them.
It needs to be more than a punishment. It needs to be a message. Tell the other wolves to find a new hunting ground, or I will hunt them too. I will send them this message. I need to find out the best way to do it. I need to find out the best place to do it.
Do you trust me?
More than most.
I understand it is a lot to ask.
You are friends to Felix. That is good enough.
He says, all right, let me rephrase. He says, do you believe that I have the interests of punishing these people, he says, and protecting others like Felix?
Gav's like, when Gav looks at somebody for a long period of time, you can tell that he's like processing. I trust you with this.
You can come with me. And he like pulls up his hood and he moves through the city like almost like he's lived there for years. You know what I'm saying? The rumors that you guys have dug up that he'd been here for 2 or 3, right? But he's obviously clearly gotten familiar with it. He doesn't move through it with quite the confidence of somebody like you who has lived here their entire life, but he does it with the certainty of somebody who knows how important it is to know the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? And he says, one of the things that I learned as a hand is that the most important thing I can do is understand who in the city pulls the strings. Says, you're connected to one of those people, Wilma. She has an enormous amount of power. He says, but now I want to make an introduction to you to somebody else who also holds as much power.
I am listening.
He says, you know the House of Stone. Garrett, there's the innkeeper. He tells the stories about the Scotland man plunges the place into darkness. Well, after he does that, those in the city whose business is done in darkness come to speak with one another. He says, I call it the Court of Swords because there are swords for hire, there are swords to be used. They do not all get along, he says, but it is a place that they recognize that they stand to be allies.
Place where action takes the place to meet. Men of action.
Says, you have been involved for some time, he says, the criminal side of the city.
I know a few people.
He says, and for as much time you have been a thug in use to others, have you not?
I do what needs to be done.
I do not think you are as thick as some people take you to be.
You would be one of the first.
You caught me, he says, when I was using people to keep an eye on everybody. Says your friend Gerard might have spotted me first, but you picked up on things after that. You may speak simply, but I don't think a simple mind. But I don't think you have a simple mind.
I've lived on the streets my entire life. You learn things. It's not the same kind of learning. I cannot read, I cannot write.
But you can read a trap and an ambush. He says you can fight your way out of a corner.
Different skills.
He says, I grew up on the Mondavi Island. He says, and I was much like you. I was nobody. Says, I was also an orphan and a child who depended on the kindness of others, although there was not much kindness on the Mondavi Island.
Not much kindness in Freiburg. You find it where you can.
He says, you find it where you can, you protect it where you can find it. He says, and for everybody else, you take what you can. You do what you have to survive. You reach a point where you're good enough at that. He says, and you live long enough. He says, and you come to the attention of a prince.
He's better than winding up in the river.
And you see that you're arriving at like the House of Stone, and like just as you're arriving, you kind of hear like a from inside of, you know, like the story that's ongoing and suddenly ending, and the regular like visitors to the inn, you know, starting to like move to the rooms, and you kind of watch as like from different directions people start to enter the inn. They're just coming in through the side doors, through the back doors, and when he takes you in and kind of like he says, "Stay with me." He says, "Sit at the table. When it's our turn to speak, we will."
So I mean, he's not exactly good at looking small, but
it's completely pitch dark inside.
Oh.
Like when you go in, like he's kind of helping guide you to a seat. He sits down next to you. You hear the creak of other tables. You can tell that like there are a lot of people that are here that are interacting with each other that know the others are there, but not necessarily who they are. Does that make sense? And you hear one voice. It's not Garrett's voice. It's not the storyteller. He starts to talk, and he sort of, it's almost like a formal minutes meeting where it's like, does anybody have something to bring before? You know, and it's like, oh, so-and-so has robbed my business. You know, like, do you have proof of this? Like, yes, I do. And like, they kind of like figure out like a redress for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you want blood or do you want coin? Like, I want coin. And that kind of like, that's just how it proceeds. It's like very business-like. Does that make sense? And then somebody's like, I would like to put forward a petition for new business. You know, I would like to begin smuggling so-and-so from Seegerlands into this area. And so like, you're just hearing them like openly talk. Does that make sense? And like kind of making sure they're not stepping on somebody else's toes or getting somebody else's market. Does that make sense?
Way
And
above Gav's pay grade.
and so there's like a kind of a period of silence, and Hattori speaks up. He says, this petitioner requests an audience in the wake of the meeting to discuss retribution on someone outside of the court with the court's blessing. And the even voice kind of like named the charges against them. It says attempted murder of a child. It says and frequent haphazard murder of the destitute. And the other voice, you know, is quiet for a time. He says, "And who have you brought with you?" And Hattori says, "I believe he is known to you. He is Gav the Grin, a native of Freeburg."
Gav just sort of grunts.
And there's a laugh from the voice of the grunt. Says, "That sounds like Gav, all right." Says, "Remain behind. We will discuss your charge." And there's a few more like elements of business. It goes like well into like midnight. And then like the rest of the whoever they are, like you hear like voices that are like soft and silky and could belong to like prostitutes or courtesans. You hear, you know, rough people who sound like they might have had their throat slit at some point, right? And it is like healed back. And then there's like the flare of a match after they're gone, and like the little lamp that's on the table is lit. You see Garrett, the innkeeper of the House of Stone, is the one who's doing it. And the man who sits across from him is somebody that Gav has maybe seen a dozen times in his life, but it's just another citizen of Freeburg. Does that make sense? Just like,
Yeah,
oh,
Gav
like,
looks at him and his eyes kind of squint a little, kind of like, I know you, but
do you know the actor that was in Sons of Anarchy that has the Glasgow smile?
I know of him. If it's the guy I'm thinking of, Tommy Flanagan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Think of that as like the person who's sitting across from you. Does that make sense? He's got like a wicked scar. That's why you recognize that you've seen him more than once. There's something distinctive about his features. He says, "I don't think we've met before, Gav."
No, but I have seen you.
It says, "My name is Macer," or at least that's what everyone calls me. And he looks back and forth between Gav and Hattori. He says, "Who is it that you intend to go after?"
Friedrich and Carmela Kraus. The Hounds.
They have very powerful connections amongst the wealthy of the city.
I will make those people regret that connection.
Tell me how.
I want to embarrass them. I meet them in alley. I give Carmela a gift of the river, which is a Freiburg euphemism for the leftovers of a fishmonger's work. And then I embarrass the so-called swordsmen, and we string them up by their feet in the screaming square for everyone to see. And we name their crimes for everyone to hear.
Macer kind of looks thoughtful. Those crimes, he says, are of course more than enough for most people in Freeburg. But for the wealthy, it will mean very little.
But the damage to the reputation will be enough. At least it will give some people pause.
My
If
concern,
they continue,
my
I
concern
don't stop at breaking legs.
Trust me, there is a part of me that yearns to burn down the rich as much as you do. If you want the rich to turn upon them, you have to make them enemies of the rich as well. We can do that. Amongst their crimes, we can make sure it looks like they are stealing from their friends. We can make sure it looks like they have crossed them so that they will be truly shunned by all within the city.
I want this city to be a battlefield for them. Every step is combat. Every look is a threat. I want them to fear this city.
That can be done.
And
I
then
will
want
fabricate the evidence of the crimes that you will accuse them of, the ones that will matter to their fellow aristocrats.
and I will put an end to their little game.
Says, I will ask you a favor in return.
Ah,
He extends a hand.
Gav returns with the Cerneth hand.
He shakes it without like a blink of fear.
End of the deal.
We have a deal. Give me 3 days to get the evidence planted.
It will take me at least 3 days to find a good place for this trap. The animals have a pattern. I am not quite sure if I see it yet.
I'll have one of the runner kids send a message to you if we figure out their new hunting grounds.
Tell them to be careful.
I'm not going to have them be the ones finding the hunting grounds, just delivering the message afterwards.
Da.
I will leave the other part to professionals.
Interesting system you have set up. Approved. I wish I knew about it earlier.
It keeps us from each other's throats.
Such a thing is needed in Freiburg. Da.
Says even a place without laws has to have rules.
And the rules cannot be broken.
He says, especially where children are concerned.
Especially.
Says the favor I'm going to ask of you is going to make you enemies.
Would not be the first time.
I just wanted to offer fair warning.
Whose face am I introducing?
Tybalt Diedrich. You know that name because he's the one who's running the slavery ring through Freiburg.
Another man whose face could use an introduction.
I'm not interested in a beating.
Pity. What do you need?
I need him in his operation out of Freiburg.
Am I?
Looks like we sort of lost you. Everything go wonky?
Yeah, I guess I haven't updated soon.
I am the storyteller.
Phenomenal cosmic power. All right. Well, do you want to close us out there, storyteller?
I actually missed what the guy wanted me to do.
He says he wants Tybalt Diedrich out of Freiburg and his business out of Freiburg.
Put him on one of his own boats. Yeet.
All right. But that is a good place for us to close out. And thank you everybody for being patient and putting up with us with our technical difficulties and going a little bit longer tonight. I'm going to do sort of a rapid outro. We'll figure out experience off screen, etc. But everybody who's here, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching our story and participating in it. Thank you for your patience through our technical difficulties. Here at Dirty 20, the mantra that we like to close out every game with is that if you cannot be kind to everyone, be nice to everyone. And I think that's something that we can all live with, and I think is going to be very important in the coming year. So thank you. And if you're watching us on YouTube, smash the like and subscribe. And if you're watching us on Twitch, smash the follow and tune in next Sunday. We'll see you then. Bye.
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 Good night.
Night, y'all.